Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about data engineering, and I wanted to kind of share my story about how I became a data engineer, and also my advice to you if you're interested in becoming a data engineer. So just to give some backstory on how I got into this field and where I come from. My background is actually as a pre-med student. I started doing software engineering because I was tired of the healthcare industry, and I don't think I really wanted to spend all that time in school to become a doctor. So I went down the software engineering path, tried my hardest to get an internship, finally got one, and I learned a lot in my internship. I learned a lot about microservices. I created a microservice, CI/CD, Python, REST APIs, understanding how to manipulate data, all these great things. And when it came time to getting a return offer, my company wanted me as a data engineer because that's where they had the opening. So I got to use a lot more Python, which is great. I love Python, even though I learned coding using Java. And I also got to learn a lot more about SQL, about databases and what it means to create databases, create tables, create schemas, create views, stored procedures, CTEs, window functions, all that great stuff from SQL. And it was not easy. I was doing a lot of data analyst stuff in my first year as a data engineer, which wasn't fun. But as I learned some of the front-end tools, Tableau, Power BI, those things, I got to experiment more with the SQL, and of course, at some point, I also got to touch a lot more Python. And as a data engineer, I think Python was the most important skill I had coming into the job. Coding was definitely an important skill I had coming into the job. If you currently are a data analyst looking to be more technical, I would definitely say learn Python and show that you can code. That is super important in setting up a lot of ETL pipelines that include third-party APIs, and also lends a lot to creating back-end microservices. Python is great for that. Though it's not as performant, I still think Python can do a fantastic job of handling a lot of big ERP kind of microservices. That's obviously a controversial take, but if you want to do data engineering, Python 100% is something you need to learn. Obviously, you also need SQL, and you also need to understand databases. So Snowflake, Postgres, or MySQL, and then NoSQL like MongoDB are really, really important databases to understand. And more so than just the databases, understanding what it means to create a database and what primary keys are and what normalization is and what cardinality issues are. Those things are really critical to showing that you know how to build data out and flesh it out and make it reliable, make it consistent, make it available, make it accurate, understanding how to monitor your data and how to test data for duplicates. Those are all things that you should think about when you're thinking of either becoming a data engineer or moving from a data analyst position to a data engineering position. There's a lot of key things to consider when you're building out data. So I would say if you're someone who's looking to transition or get a job, the first thing would be to learn Python, then learn SQL, then learn techniques, stored procedures, what else? CTEs, window functions, just general queries, joins, of course. Learn those things, then learn databases and start building out your database and fleshing it out and understanding what it means to build a database, and then start querying your data, start creating jobs, a stored procedure or a data pipeline using Python to move data around from an external third-party API to your database. Those are important steps to understanding what it means to move data and have reliable data. Once you can do those things, then I would say try using a scheduler like Airflow That requires understanding Linux. It requires understanding DAGs. It requires understanding deploying things to a server. So those are tools I would definitely focus on. Once you can program, understand databases, understand a scheduler, start creating more pipelines that kind of show your work readiness. So you want to be able to show to an employer or your manager or your boss or the data engineering team that you've created ETLs, you know what you're doing when you create one, you understand what it means to have reliable data that's accurate and consistent. I would get familiar with big data technologies like Kafka, Hadoop, Spark. Those things will teach you data at the big level, and I think just having a good understanding and maybe a project or two of those will help you get started. I would also learn a cloud platform like Azure or AWS. Personally, I learned Azure, and I think there's a lot of importance in understanding what Azure SQL storage does and why it's important, and why Azure containers are important for holding your APIs and your applications, and how it can help your company and your team, knowing the trade-offs that are done when you host things in the cloud. I would also learn more infrastructure stuff like Docker, Kubernetes, OpenShift, CI/CD pipelines. From there, you can understand how to deploy your work and test it and manage it better. So that's kind of the overview of what I would learn. So start with Python, learn SQL, learn about databases, build ETL out, ETL pipelines, get hands-on with Azure or AWS or whatever you want to learn. Blog about your pipelines, put it on your resume, earn a certification or two, Snowflake or Azure or something. And once you can do those things confidently, I think you can start making your case for your team, or if you're someone who doesn't have a job, you can start applying to jobs and showing how much you know about big data and how you know how to create pipelines, and people will want to hire you based on your industry relevant knowledge. And I still can't stress enough how important it is, I think, to know Python, because then you can show people that you're more of a programmer who's specialized in data versus just a pure data engineer. You can also start touching back-end kind of things if you know Python. So thanks for watching. That's all I have.